state-of-the-art technologies.
Well,
that will
just if you don't mind, I have a series of these questions. Does it make electricity more or less affordable?
The rules that we will be requiring will allow coal plants to proceed in a way that is
right. But I'm trying to get to the certainty that you said your regulation creates. If this regulation creates certainty, does your regulation make electricity more or less affordable?
We do not expect that these rules will make electricity less affordable in this country, as plants are able to plan ahead and build plants that will meet the requirements.
So will it make electricity more or less expensive then? Maybe that's a better way to put it.
These are the kinds of things that we look at in our economic analysis, and
right. So
everybody
to keep that certainty and to keep the certainty that you said these rules provide, does it make electricity more or less expensive?
The analysis may show that the addition of additional equipment will increase costs to...
Okay, so there's the certainty right there. So it will increase electricity costs. Thank you. You said... Were you at the coal hearing in Denver that the EPA held, the listening session in Denver?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So do you do economic viable studies of communities where they produce coal?
We do economic analysis of the proposed rules that we are looking at.
But, I mean, do you look at the communities where there's a coal mine and there's employees there? I mean, do you look at the economic viability of those communities and what happens in this rule that you're certain will make electricity more expensive?
I should amend what I said a minute ago, or clarify what I said a minute ago. The analysis that we've put forward on this rule does show that this particular rule will not increase electricity prices.
Okay. Do you believe that overall regulations at EPA increase the cost of electricity? Looking at this regulation in combination with other regulations that have come through on greenhouse gases or electricity production from coal?
There are many factors that affect electricity prices over time, and environmental regulations have been shown to be a very, very small aspect of what increases prices over time.
Do you think those price increases have a larger impact on people who may be on a fixed income?
The price of electricity overall is something that affects people, but as I said, the contribution of environmental regulation to those cost changes is minimal.
All right, just a couple of other questions. For existing plants, do you agree that states will have a primary role in setting performance standards for electric generating units?
For existing plants, the role that states have is to design the plan at the state level that will meet the guidelines that the EPA will establish.
So the states will have a primary role in setting under the Regional Haze program. This is what I'm getting at, which is also a program intended to be implemented primarily by the states. EPA has been routinely disapproving SIP plans and seeking to impose federal implementation plans that require plant owners to spend millions of dollars or shut down their units. Where states object or challenge the EPA then proceeds to enforce these federal implementation plans through litigation. We've got examples of these in Arizona, New Mexico, Montana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Utah, and Wyoming. Will you provide me with an assurance the EPA will give states more deference under its pending greenhouse gas regulations that the agency has done under the Regional Haze program?
EPA, in fact, has approved the majority of the Regional Haze plans.
So will you again, the question is, will you give states more deference under its pending greenhouse gas regulations that the agency has under its Regional Haze program?
EPA will work with the states, as we always do, when they have the authority to design state plans, to make sure that those state plans meet the federal target.
And I have some additional questions. In the State Department, when we had Gina McCarthy, Administrator McCarthy, before the committee last year, we talked about new source performance standards for power plants. And in our exchange, she testified that she could not rule out regulation of any of the 70 source categories under EPA's new source performance standards program, which covered all types of industrial activities. Is that still your position, that you cannot rule any source out?
We are focused on the actions laid out in the President's Climate Action Plan, which has power plants as the rulemaking that we are.
Are there any source categories the EPA can affirmatively rule out of greenhouse gas regulations?
There are many source categories that EPA regulates that we
so
have.
You can't rule any of them out?
We have no present intention of.
If the EPA doesn't pursue regulation of all these emission sources, can the EPA guarantee that there will not be lawsuits to compel the regulation?
I can't guarantee that there won't be lawsuits. The EPA gets sued all the time, but we make our decisions about what to do based on the science and priority setting, and power plants are clearly the largest source of carbon in the country.
The chairman's been incredibly indulgent with my time, and just finally, one last question. Can the EPA provide an assurance that there won't be an ever-expanding suite of EPA greenhouse gas regulations?
As I said, we are focused on the source category that contributes the most carbon pollution in this country.
So there could continue to be an ever-expanding suite?
There are a number of source categories that I would not expect us to be looking at in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and we are
be interested in finding out what those are. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. At this time, I'll recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hall, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know.